I was panicking. I said, I'm gonna flunk out of law school. I didn't think I was smart enough to be a judge.
Tell me about running for office.
My husband, he says, you're gonna run for judge? That's crazy. And I told him it could cost about $250,000. He's like, are you crazy? What if you lose? For 2 years, I worked nights, weekends, and I was there till 1 o'clock in the morning. I was probably the worst student the school's ever seen.
Really?
I can't even count how many people told me, you can't do this as a woman.
I've had a lot of inspiring guests on Momentum, but my guest today, Justice Gina Abadi, has a story of resilience and community impact that, in my opinion, truly stands out. Gina is a justice in the Supreme Court of Kings County, and her journey to get there was anything but traditional. In our conversation, we uncover how she went from being, in her own words, what she called the worst student the schools have ever seen, to earning a writing award in law school and becoming one of the select few Supreme Court justices in New York City. Stick around to hear our discussion about how Gina's social skills played a pivotal role in navigating her early career and the challenges of balancing a demanding legal career with family life. She also shares the surprising lessons she learned while running for political office, which, by the way, was a process that cost her $250,000. Gina shares her deep commitment to giving back, particularly through coaching the Magen David Yeshiva High School mock trial team for over 20 years and serving as a mentor to the students. I'm Victor Brackett, and Momentum is where I dive deep with exceptional leaders to uncover the key decisions, defining moments, and lessons that propelled them to success and how those insights can inspire your journey forward. And let me tell you, if you're interested in hearing how a failing student turned into a Supreme Court justice in New York City, the rigorous experience of running a campaign in Brooklyn, and how to balance a professional career and family life, you're going to love this episode. Let's get into it. This episode is sponsored by Bluesoft Design. Judge Gina Abadi, welcome to Momentum.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I like to start each guest off as follows. Tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do both in the professional sense and in the charitable giving back sense.
So in the professional sense, I'm a judge in the Supreme Court, Kings County. And in the how I give back is through the communities. I mentor kids. For 20 plus years, I was the coach of the mock trial team, and I mentored the Magen David kids, Yeshiva High School kids, through that program and beyond. And beyond, after they graduated, I still stay in touch with them.
That's great.
And try to help the best way I can.
Amazing, amazing. So let's go back to your professional role as a judge in the Kings County Supreme Court. So did you always know you wanted to be a judge?
I didn't think it was a possibility.
Really?
I graduated college, and I always wanted to go to law school. My mother encouraged me also. I applied, I got in. I wasn't allowed to leave Brooklyn.
Right.
I went to Brooklyn College, Brooklyn Law School, and I met my husband right before I started law school, and after my first year, we got married, and he assumed I was going to drop out of school. He says, what are you going to do now? I said, I have 2 more years left. And he said, but you don't have to finish this school. You know, you could just, you don't have to work. You don't have to do all these things. I said, what am I going to do home all day? So I finished 2 years, and he said, but you're not going to work. I said, of course not. But then I said, I'm going to get a job until, we decide to start a family. And then I don't want to say I kind of hoodwinked him one thing into the next, but he says, you're going to finish school, now you're going to work. And I said, I'm only going to work till we have kids. Then I had kids, and I said, well, it's not so bad. I'm not really taking time away from the kids that much. And just one thing led to another. After I applied I only accepted jobs. I only pursued jobs that were 9 to 5 because I wanted to give time to my family. And government jobs are 9 to 5 for the most part. The building, I don't want to say it's not open past 5, but after 5 o'clock, it really clears out. You could do work in the house, but no one is in the building past 5.
Right.
I got a government job working for a judge, Judge Kurtz, and I was with him. We started in civil court. He got promoted to Supreme Court. He took me with him. I worked for him for about 17 to 18 years, but in the 16th year around, he said, well, when are you going to run? And I said I wasn't going to run. And he said, why not? You could do this. And I didn't think I was smart enough to be a judge. And he said, run and do it, and and you have what it takes, you could do it. So I ran an election in about the 17th year, and it was a contested election. I had to get a campaign manager, make commercials, and a social media manager, and I won. I think it was about like over 70% of the votes.
Wow, okay. That was an overwhelming majority.
It was, and the area wasn't just our area. It went along the water all the way into Canarsie, so it was different. It wasn't like I got our community's votes and I was good.
Right.
It was many different. It was the Asian votes. It was the Black. It was Hispanic. It was. I had to get votes from all over. So and I did it. So when I was elected to civil court, but they needed judges in criminal court.
Okay.
So I ended up in criminal court for 2 years. Then I went to civil court for a year, and I got elected to Supreme Court, where I've been for about 4 years. But I would say that I was in the shock of my life headed into criminal court because I saw things that probably nobody's ever seen from our community.
Right, right. Do you call them Supreme Court justices or judges?
So when you're in Supreme Court, you're a justice. If you're in the lower court, you're a judge.
So how many Supreme Court justices are there in Kings County?
There are a lot because, well, I shouldn't say a lot. I'd say probably around 50 because there's criminal court justices also. So there's a few buildings. There's 320 J Street, which handles criminal cases, and there's also 360 Adams, which is most of the civil court judges are in Adam Street, and you might know that address because that's where you go for jury duty.
Oh, got it, nice. So I want to go back to like your days in grade school and high school. Were you always a good student?
I was probably the worst student the school's ever seen.
Really?
Hebrew was not my thing, even though I find that my Hebrew today is better than my kids, the Hebrew that they learned, but it was very intense. Most of our teachers spoke only Hebrew, and it wasn't easy for me. The second language wasn't easy. If you went back and asked kids that I was in school with, and you asked them to vote who's the least likely to succeed, it probably would have been me. I always had something to say back to the teachers. I wasn't quiet. I was restless. Probably did have ADD, ADHD, whatever you want to call it, which wasn't a recognized thing back, in the 80s. So they didn't say, oh, she needs a fidget, she needs to walk around. I just got yelled at for not sitting down.
Right.
And then when it came time to apply for the high school, I didn't get in to Mag David High School. They wouldn't take me. And I ended up in Sephardic. And then my mother went to talk to the principal of Mag David, and he said, of course she should come here. And in 10th grade, I went there.
Oh, wow.
I did okay. And then I got into college, which to me was a lot easier. And I did very well in college. Really? And I applied for law school, and I did very well in law school as well, which I didn't even think I could do this well in law school, but I got a scholarship at some point, and I probably could have gone somewhere better than a government job. I got offers, but I wasn't looking for big law. I wasn't looking to do any of that.
Right.
I wanted to be there for my family.
What a stark contrast between your performance in elementary and high school and your performance in college and law school. Why do you think that is?
So I think that it was easier because there wasn't a second language. And I tell my kids and, even the kids that are in the middle, when I was doing mock trial, look, first of all, you only have to be good at one thing. You don't have to be good at everything. I don't need to know how to do calculus. I don't need to know how to write. I can't write a poem. If you asked me to do creative writing, it would be horrible. Ask me to write a contract, I could do it. I could do one thing, and that's law, but that's all you need to be good at. So, and also the hours were different. I wasn't, going to school from 8 o'clock in the morning. Now they have this thing where you start late. People used to have to be in school at 7:15, 7:30. Now it's 8 o'clock, but it's half the time. So I could manage it, and I have to be good at one thing. And I went to a school where all they did was law. It was law school. Great, I could do this. I could figure it out.
I can tell you that in our competitive yeshiva schools, especially in the community, a lot of young people associate their self-worth with their grades, right? So I got a 50 on the report card, I must not be good enough. And so that's a problem that I see with, with a lot of community members. What do you say to those young people who associate their self-worth with their school grades?
So I can tell you that I was one of those people. I don't, it doesn't go away. You can't just tell yourself, oh, I got a 50, I'm worth 100. It doesn't work like that.
Right. When
I got into law school, first of all, I was panicking because I got into law school and I remember sitting there they had like an intro class that starts in the beginning, in mid-August.
Sure.
Everybody go around and tell us about yourself. I remember the kid's name because I was just, one guy says, oh, I'm the online editor of the New York Times. And my heart sunk because I was like, okay, I think it's an accident that I got into this school. It's the whole thing is an accident. Maybe my 4 years of college, I was in Brooklyn College. This guy, New York Times, and he went to some fancy school. And I'm sitting in the room and everybody's saying what their experience, talking about their experience and where they came from. And I said, I'm going to flunk out of law school. And the fact that I got 50s in Mag and David didn't translate to, and then in college I did well, it didn't translate to I'm going to do great, I'm going to do so well in law school. I went back to the 50s and I said, okay, maybe college was a fluke. You can't tell yourself, okay, I got 50s and it's going to be great. I kind of had to see it for myself after the first year, so I had another plan. My social skills are probably better than some of my other skills. So what I did was I listened to what everybody said. One of the people said to me, he said, oh, my father's a judge, and one of the students. I said, okay, let me move. I looked for a study group, and there was one person in particular that stood out. And I told her, do you want to start a study group? And she's asking me what I am. I said, I'm an Orthodox Jew. She says, oh, we're like the same thing. And I looked at her, and she looked Irish. And I said, how are we the same? She says, oh, I'm a born-again Christian. And she went into the whole history. And she says, we're really the same. And I said, great. And we were in class, and she raised her hand and corrected the teacher. The subject was, I guess, in the 60s, the seatbelts only went across your lap. Okay. And the kids were snapping in half when there were accidents.
Sure.
They needed another strap. And there were hearings, and the teacher said something. She says, I read the hearings. Who reads the hearings from the 1960s on seatbelts? I got up, I picked my stuff up, I moved next to this woman. I said, we're going to be best friends for the next year. So I said, I know I don't know. I'm not like her. I'm not like the New York Times editor. I'm not like this kid whose father's a judge. I said, you know what, but I'm going to sit next to these people, and I looked over, whatever they're writing, I'm going to write, and I'm going to see what holes in my notes or holes in what I'm learning could be filled in by these people. So the 50s that I got, I was in my mind a 50 student when I walked into the school, because I said, I don't know if I could pull this off, but I'm going to sit next to the people that I can. My mother cooked for them. She made schnitzel. They said, so
Jewish way.
I fed the study group. And then all of a sudden I had the best study group, and we all did very well. And then after the first year, she went to NYU because she had a 4.3. She was a genius. She is a genius.
Sure.
But I did even better for the next 2 years. So at that point, it went away. When I was on my own, that's when I figured out I could do this.
That's so interesting. Do you think you're not doing great in elementary school built up like a foundation of a lack of confidence in your grades in general?
Yes, it did. And the fact that I did well in Brooklyn College, it didn't mean as much to me, because I said, you know what, maybe this is an accident. But I would say you don't have to be good at everything. So maybe I can't do math. I can't do any of these things. Pick one thing you're good at. And then focus on it. So law, I was good at law. I'm good at arguing with people. So I focused on that, and that's what I went with. As you do well, as you see, like, oh, I got an A in torts. Maybe that's not an accident, because not everybody got an A. Your confidence will build up, but you pick one thing you're good at. And I think just because we're in school so many hours, it's a lot easier to do well
Right.
outside of yeshiva setting,
Right.
outside of the dual curriculum and the hours, because now I'm only in school for 5 hours, 3 days a week, and then I could study for the other 5 hours. You could give yourself that extra time that you need to do well, and you pick something you want. You don't have to take classes and things you don't want to, that have no interest to you,
Yeah.
and you're always going to be better at things you're interested in.
That's true. It comes easier to you. What I'm taking from you is twofold. Number one, it's true that you don't have to be good at everything. I mean, school kind of tells us that we need to be good at English, math, history, science, and everything in between. But if you look at any professional, there's no professional who's besides for maybe a professor, but no, they specialize. There's no professional who's a professional in English, math, history, and science, right? So, like, school, the number on your report card, unfortunately, like if you get a 70, you'll think to yourself, am I 70% of a person? Am I 70%, and people, and no, it really determines people's confidence. But number one is that you don't need to be good at everything. And number two is that you can utilize other things around you to do better, And also give yourself some credit. Like I think there are a lot of people like you who maybe don't do so well in high school. And then they start doing well in college, but they say, oh, it's a fluke. Oh, it's a mistake. I shouldn't be doing well. No, you should be doing well, and you have to give yourself, if you're going to give yourself flack for the negatives, you have to give yourself credit for the positives, right?
100%. 100%. But also, people have different skill sets. So, for example, I have a child in Megan David, and he is, a fabulous student.
Sure.
And he comes, he comes home with hundreds on his report card, and I never imagined I would see hundreds on one of my children's report cards. But then if I put him in the real world and I said, figure this out, know that he would be able to figure it out, at least not at 16. But my daughter, she was like a 90 student, sometimes an 80 student. I always say, if I threw her in the middle of the desert and I said, figure out how to get back, she would figure it out.
Right.
If I gave her a job to do that she never did before, she could figure it out. So it's not, my older son was, I think his first semester he had like a 75. He has a 4.0 in college. A 4.0, and he had a 75 average his first year in Magan.
Such a difference.
And it's just, I don't even know who this kid is. He got to college, and he soared. And he says, this is a joke. And even with his accomplishments, he got a full scholarship in a few law schools, and he
Wow.
but he almost didn't tell us. He says, this is not a big deal. And he knows he could do it. He got that confidence. I don't know if it was through college, but it didn't start out that way.
Right.
So I'm very proud, but he's just like, I need to get to the end goal, and I could do this, and watch me. And I'm like, you're in law school, you have the editor of the New York Times. You have, I don't know who else in the class with you. You don't know who's in there. And he says, I could do this. I'm doubting that he could do it just because. And he's like, no, I got this.
Wow, that's great. That's
Yeah.
great. And to look at your story, and like you went from almost failing out of elementary and high school to excelling and eventually getting into law school. So I want to hear about, what did it look like after law school for you? You were married for a couple of years already, and did you go straight to work?
So I did. So I want to say one more thing. Before I got into Brooklyn College, at one point I had to take a writing class.
Sure.
I took this writing test and I failed it. So they told me, okay, you could start in the fall, but you have to come in the summer. I said, for what? He said, some remedial writing class. And, this just was the continuation of me thinking I couldn't do it. I said,
Right.
oh my gosh, I'm going to be in remedial writing. Fast forward to law school, I got the writing award.
Really?
And I don't even think I knew. One of my interns said, I researched it. I saw you got the writing award. I said, I did. I went back and I looked. I didn't even care because at that time I had a husband. I was looking for a job, but I got the writing award in law school. And it was a big deal. And I went from remedial writing, which, by the way, I still probably can't write a poem or any of these things.
How did you get the writing award?
I actually read a book, like a legal writing book, that helped me, and it mentioned, I don't know if you know what this is, nominalizations and different ways that you could write concisely, and
Sure.
and so I'm better at this even than I thought it would be. I take the entire page, could probably cut it down to half a page.
Oh, wow.
With the skills that I learned.
That's great.
Taking out the extra words. I'm better at looking at written work and cutting it down. So even when my kids do something, I said, okay, this is what you could do. Change these nouns to verbs. Instead of decision, write decide. And it's little things like that I learned in this class. It improved my writing. But I finished my first year. I got married after my first year of law school. I finished the next 2 years, and I took the bar exam on July, I think, 28th and 29th. And the 30th, I started my job. And my judge said, you know, you could take a few days off. I said, no, I'm making sure I have this job, and I'm showing up. And it was almost too good to be true, 9 to 5. And everybody told me, you can't be a mom. You can't be, are you going to cook for your husband? Nobody's gone hungry in my house yet. Everybody has a meal. And it's usually a 3-course meal. Shabbat is always, you know, the table's set. There's a roast, there's chicken, there's everything everyone wants to eat. If they request hamud, mez, it's all there. It's not like they're missing it because I'm working.
Sure.
And I started a family. I worked for a year, and I got pregnant. And then I told my judge, I said, oh, this is it. I just want 1 kid. Then a year later, I got pregnant again. And he just looked, he's like, are you one of these people that's going to have 100 kids? I said, no. But then I had another kid after that. But I waited a little bit. But I went straight into it. And then I moved closer to my mother, next door to my mother. And that was the support system. There's no shame in asking people for help.
For sure.
And depending on your family. So I knew I had to be in work from 9 to 5 or 10 to 5, whatever it was. And if I needed to take work home with me, I could do work for an hour or two at home. But I was next door to my mother. If my kids were hungry and I was making dinner, it wasn't ready, they went down to my mother. My mother was happy to feed them. My son Eli, by the time he was 4, he was reading Hebrew. Probably before he was reading English, because my father says, oh, let me teach him the parasha. Let me do this. He went down to Jiddo and he learned how to read. He learned the parasha. And everything was built in because I was next door to them. If the housekeeper or whatever, the babysitter was late, whoever it was, my mother was next door. So nobody missed anything, and they had more than one person to talk to and be with.
And that was important to you, the support system, it sounds like.
It was the best. And my mother, I don't want to say she foresaw this, but she said, you know, I have an apartment next door to me. Just go there, and it's open, and I'll help you with everything. And she did.
Right after you finished law school, you got straight to work. You thought it was almost too good to be true, the 9 to 5 job. And was that the job that you were at for 17 years? Or you?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
But we moved from court to court. So he was in civil court for about 5 years. And then we moved to Supreme Court. And I just thought an interesting story, you know, going back to not having confidence. My judge was, at the time, none of the judges took their law clerks into the courtroom with them. But I was brand new. And he said, let's go, we're going to the courtroom, and you're going to do the motions with me, and you're going to be, you know, up front. I don't sign anything unless you read it. I said, got it. So we go there, and I have this old-time lawyer. He says, go see what they want. They're fighting. So I go there, and maybe I was 23 at the time, and I don't want to say the Syrian women generally put themselves together better. I find that we do put ourselves together better. So, you know, I look pretty and I'm young. So I go up to these people. I said, what's going on? And he's telling me, well, you know, the CPLR says this and this, and he says, I have shoes older than you. I don't know who you are. I have shoes older than you, and this is what it is, and I'm doing this forever, and you just got here. And by the time he finished with me, I went back to my judge. I said, Judge, you know, he said this and that, and I don't think that's right. And he looks at me and says, you know that's not right. I said, but he has shoes older than me, and he told me he knows, and he says, he sees that you just got out of law school, and he thinks you're stupid, and you go and you tell him, go take the book. I said, oh my gosh, now I have to correct him, and he's like 70, and he says, take the book, show him. So I said, well, sorry, you know, I looked it up, and this is not, doesn't say that. Oh, all right, he tells me. He knew, and he was playing me, and I believed that he was right because he was more experienced. But I needed my judge to tell me, this is not right. You know what the law is. Go tell him. I said, but he's more experienced. But he knew he was wrong, and the way he said, "Oh, all right," and I said, I got played because I didn't believe in myself, and even though I knew what was right, I didn't speak up for myself because I thought he knew more than I did.
And that's, I mean, that exemplifies how you started to gain confidence in your position as a law clerk.
Well, I think I realized that lawyers, a lot of them are full of crap.
Right.
And I don't want to say, a lot of times when I read things now, I'm like, oh, he looks like he's lying. And oh, this can't be true. And I'm the opposite now. I think I come from the position, like, show me you're telling me the truth. Show me that this is real. Did you swear to this at the bottom? Now I'm looking to see what kind of signature is there. Or I recently had a case where they said, this person didn't sign off on it. They gave me a paper that was not signed off. I said, you know what? Let me go down to the file. I went to the basement. I dug it up. It was signed. Somebody erased it. So now it's the attorney submitted it. I don't know if his client submitted it or his client gave it to him unsigned. He said, this contract was never signed. I went and I dug up the case from 1995. It was in the basement and it was signed. So I don't want to say I assume everybody's lying, but I look into it a little bit more. I don't take that what they're submitting to me is accurate.
Right. You don't take everything at face value.
No, not anymore.
Right. I mean, you can't. In the position you're in, you can't. Right.
And now I trained my staff, who I have two court attorneys working under me, but I mean, one thinks they're always full of it, and I have another serene woman working for me that now she started with, oh, I don't believe them. Now she sounds like me when I was, 20 years ago.
Right.
So it's good.
Right. Right. So tell me a little bit about working as a mother who's raising a family. It was 9 to 5, but what were some of the challenges along the way?
I think the biggest challenge, it really wasn't so bad while I was working for a judge because I didn't bear the responsibility of, if, for example, my son had, let's say, was at the Siddur play in first grade in Mag and David. Like, I had to be there. If I were the judge, I would need to be on the bench at 9:30.
Sure.
But I didn't have to be. So I could go to the Siddur play for 2-3 hours and then come to work. And he understood. And his motto was families first. This job is second. And I take that.
That's great.
That's my motto.
That's
was also with my staff, your health, your family, and then the job. We'll figure it out. One of us will pick it up if you can't. But I don't think it was challenging until I ran for judge and I had to be at all these events every night. And I think my husband, just when I told him, he says, you're going to run for judge? I mean, he said, that's crazy. How are you going to do this? And then he said, how much is this going to cost? And when I told him it could cost about $250,000, I think he's like, are you crazy? What if you lose? You can spend another $250,000. And I'm like, I don't know, And he just, I don't want to say, we both freaked out when we heard the numbers because I had to meet with a consultant. I had to hire people. So I think that was the most challenging. I wasn't home as much. And at night I had events. And my family, after I won, my kids actually said, why are you here all the time? They told me. They liked it better when I was not out as much, but somewhere in the middle. But now I was home every day, and then they said, well, you're always here. When is it? Like, we want to play a video game. Leave us alone. So it's not like anybody missed anything, but some of the benefits was I was doing mock trial. I made sure my son was on the mock trial team, the one that's going to law school. So in 9th grade, he says, I don't want to do the mock trial team. I said, guess what you're doing? Because I'm here doing the mock trial team because you're going to be doing the mock trial team. So I introduced him to law. My daughter was on the mock trial team.
Nice.
So I wanted to give back to them, but I can't say that I had a support system. If my kid was sick and I couldn't take them to the doctor, besides my mother, my sister, she's great. We had same pediatrician. I made an appointment. I'll take them. It was not, or I had 2 or 3 friends that really, when they had a day off, if it was if it's Chol Moed, Sukkot, and I had to go. If it was like a certain day, I had to go. I couldn't take a day off. Nobody made me feel bad. I'm picking up your kids. Where are you going? We're going to the park. We're going to the museum. One of two people, always, it was either my friend Batya or my friend Francis who made Aliyah. Always, they didn't ask. They said, well, get your kids dressed. We're taking them at 10. And as a mom, you almost want to cry when you have to go to work and your kids are home and you hear about all these other people. They're going to the zoo and you feel horrible. But my friends didn't even ask. One of my friends, let's say sometimes she was home, I'm picking them up, I'm bringing them to my house, we're all breaking bread or whatever. And I said, like, she's not even taking them out anywhere. She's taking them to her house. And it was great. And they were both stay-at-home moms. They didn't make me feel bad. They didn't say, you owe me one. My sister would take the kids, and that it was all very helpful. And she had kids, my daughter and her daughter are the same age.
That's great.
It was wonderful. Wonderful. Nobody made me, they would pick them up and they would bring them back. And it was just, I knew my kids weren't home playing video games all day. They were out having fun if I couldn't be there.
That's great. Yeah, support system is great.
And don't be afraid to ask. If they offer, take it.
Right. Attention brand owners, do you manage a Shopify business that's struggling to get new sales and customers? Or maybe you sell on other marketplaces like Amazon or Walmart and are thinking of launching your own online store? If so, let me tell you about Bluesoft Design. They're the team behind some amazing custom Shopify sites, and they know exactly how to get you results with Google marketing. Whether you need a high-converting site, better SEO, or smarter Google Ads strategies, they'll help you attract more traffic and turn it into real sales without wasting time or money trying it yourself or guessing what works. Check them out at bluesoftdesign.com and book a free 30-minute consultation. Again, that's bluesoftdesign.com. Give your e-commerce brand the edge it needs. Thank you again to Bluesoft for sponsoring this episode of Momentum. Let's get back to it. Tell me about running for office. It costs $250,000?
It depends where you're running. If you're running a district race or county-wide race, and if you have an opponent. A lot of people get lucky. Well,
if you don't have an opponent, you don't have to run, right?
You do.
Why, you have to get people to the polls?
No.
How does it work?
So first of all, you got to get support enough for people to say, this is my candidate.
Sure.
There's many clubs in Brooklyn. I was a member of the Thomas Jefferson Club in Canarsie, who the leader of the Democratic Party, that was his club. So that's the club I picked. So I drove to Canarsie. Every time I had to go, I drove to Canarsie. So he said, Gina's my candidate. There was another district leader says, no, for this district, this is my candidate. I said, you know what? I need to be the candidate. So at some point, I took on the fight, but also it was a money fight. So he says, he tells me, we opened up a committee. He says, okay, just deposit $300,000 in the account. I'm like, are you like, what? And he says, yeah, just do it by tomorrow. And I said, what, are these people crazy? So, and then, no, wait, it gets better. It can't all come from you. Not that I even had it. It can't all come from you. Get 20 people to write checks. And because it should look like it's coming from a lot of people. And I said, oh my God. And then I looked to my husband, was like, what are you crazy? Like, I even thought it was crazy. And he thought I was even afraid to tell him what I was told. So I went to my uncle's and I said, I need a check. Go, no, you want $1 million? I said, no, I just need $300,000. Now it sounded better. I just need $300,000. So he went around to his office, said, everybody write a check for this amount. We're making a donation. Don't worry, you'll get it back. Whatever, I promise you'll get it back. Or whatever he said. I deposited the money, and it was supposed to scare the candidates off, but it didn't. So they said, okay, I remember the morning I was at a bris and deal, and I get a phone call, and they said, you have an opponent. And my heart sank. I said, really? So now it could be much less money, but it wasn't at the end because you have an opponent. So now what happened? So we have this social media team that we hired for you, and now I have a campaign manager that I'm paying for. The campaign manager, I'm paying for this. Even if I didn't need these people, you need these people at least to garnish the support toward the other opponents off. But I didn't end up doing that because I had an opponent. So now I deposited the money. I need to get petitions to get on the ballot. You need that regardless of whether you have an opponent or not. So you have to
Right.
pay people to go out, those green pieces of paper that
Oh, wow.
everybody signs. You're going out in the street, you're asking people to sign. So now what's my district? The Syrian people, which the last people I was concentrating on were the Syrians because I'm Syrian, they'll probably vote for me. Okay, so I'm in the Russian area, and my opponent was Russian. So now I have to go there. Now I'm hiring Russian media people, translators. I mean, writing articles and translating them in Russian. And now I'm reading the article. I can't even read Russian. I don't even know if what they're saying is true. So I have to hire somebody to... Are they saying I'm a horrible person? What are they saying in Russian? So I'm hiring those people now, and Russian ads and Russian literature and palm cards. And now I have... There's a lot of housing projects that my district is part of. So now what happens? Oh, you need to go into the projects. I said, what? Yeah, I need to go into the projects. Don't worry, you're going to hire a bodyguard. I said, I have to hire a bodyguard now? Now you see how the money's going.
Wow.
I got a bodyguard. Oh, and you have a specific campaign manager for the housing area. I said, I have to hire a separate person. I'm talking over $10,000.
Wow.
So now it's like I can't get, the money's going everywhere. And I go into the projects, and I'm like, hi, I'm Gina Abadi, and already they're not happy. It's not my ethnicity. And I got a lot of, well, why the hell should I vote for you? And I don't know if I should have said this because I'm white. And they're like, they just couldn't believe I said it. And I said, because I'm here. My opponent is white, but I'm here and they're not. So it doesn't matter what I am because I'm here to get your vote and I'm here to listen to you. And they responded very well to that, even though they thought that, and they said, you people, you just show up and then you disappear. I said, I won't disappear. If you want me to speak about community affairs, I can. You want me to, at the end, I was also like I was placed in all different assignments from criminal to civil to Supreme. So I knew I had a lot to speak about if they asked me to come back and speak.
Sure.
So, but I went into the barbershops. I went into the housing projects. At one point, somebody threw something at me. They threw a glass bottle, and the person that was there to protect me moved me out of the way.
Wow.
And I was in the train stations, and at one point there was, I don't know if she is a mermaid. I don't know what she is. There's this lady that she's clearly high, but she sits outside the Stillwell Avenue station. She was there every morning. Hey, Gina, she would tell me. I'm like, hey. And it became like, I don't want to say, it was almost like I knew everybody in the neighborhood.
Sure.
And it wasn't like she's the outsider. Now she's here every day. So it was, I got their votes as well. So I think that made the difference. And even, I'm very nice to everybody at work, but even there was the cleaning woman on the floor, and she told me, Gina, like, what do you need me to do? And I said, I'm not going to ask you to do anything. She says, no, I want to do something for you. What do you need me to do? I said, I need you to go into Coney Island for me and get me votes. And she says, I'm there. She took a train into Coney Island.
Really? Because
I'm nice to her when I see her.
Wow.
Because we're friendly. You don't know what kind of help you're going to need. Be nice to everyone. Because the cleaning woman and my campaign manager says, you can't send all these Syrian friends out into Coney Island. You're gonna lose votes. So I needed people from each ethnicity, even the Pakistani community I was in. So you need people who look like the demographic to get you the votes. So, and it was successful.
What else did you learn from running a campaign?
That people are mean. People are very mean, and I learned also you can't attack people's religion. How about that?
Okay.
Because the other person, they said, oh, there's an Orthodox Jew running against you. And I said, she's not Orthodox. I don't, either way, it doesn't matter to me, but she's not Orthodox. And the more I said it, people like, you can't question her religion. I said, she's not Orthodox.
She probably doesn't call herself Orthodox.
But she did. That was the thing.
Oh, she did.
There's another Orthodox candidate. She called herself an Orthodox candidate. From what I heard, I don't know from her personally.
So then it could get tricky, right?
So now it's like she's not, I am. And they're like, are you questioning her? We have no reason to question. And it was very hot out. I went to like some kind of street fair where I was talking to strangers there and doing what I do. And she was there and she put on like opaque tights. And I'm talking, it was 95 degrees. I wasn't even dressed like this. And they said she's the candidate. But I think like they saw her eating out at like not kosher meat, but she was still the Orthodox. And I couldn't say, this is what makes you Orthodox. And I can't. That's not something you could say. You can't say you're not Jewish enough or you're not this ethnicity enough. You just can't question other people's religion or race. Or like I learned that very quickly. And some people don't think I'm Orthodox. It's not.
Right.
I wear pants. I don't cover my hair. And people say, oh, you're not Orthodox.
Right.
But then I was kind of saying, well, is she not, or is she? But she needed to get the vote she needed to get, and she is who she is, but it wasn't for me to question who she is.
Right.
And I learned that very quickly.
Right. Knocking on doors and trying to convince people to vote for you. What did you learn about crafting your pitch and optimizing it to be the best it can be and to really capture people's vote? Like it's one big negotiation. It's one big sales pitch.
So I think just being myself was what it took. I didn't relating to people. They're on the train. I'm on the train. I would go into the train station. A funny story is there are these festivals or not festivals, but there are these gatherings in Marine Park. And Marine Park is mostly Republican. I ran as a Democrat. So, they said you're a Democrat. People wouldn't even talk to me.
Really?
And they would yell at me.
But how does it work for a justice to be a Democrat or a Republican?
So I don't think there was ever a Republican in many tens of decades
Really?
that won as, yes. So when you run as a Democrat, you run in the primary, which is now in June. It was in September when I was running. They changed it. So in June, they pick who the Democrat on the candidate's going to be, and then the Democrat runs against a Republican in November.
Sure.
But at that point, I wasn't even in the country. I went to Israel because I felt like that was where I need to be. That's where I needed to be. I knew I already won in November. I wasn't even in the country. So when I won in September, my name is the name on the ballot as a Democrat, and New York it's mostly the Democrat always wins for the most part. And if it's a localized district, if it's just our community, maybe that wouldn't have been true. So we have a councilwoman that won who's a Republican, but her district doesn't extend into Canarsie.
Sure.
And I know who's voting. Not only that, I got lists of who votes. I mean, I know a lot. When you vote in a primary, it makes you more of a target for as far as a pitch and to get attention from our elected officials. So I knew.
You got all that information.
I had campaign managers that were pulling information. I knew which primary you voted in, how many times you vote, if you miss a primary, if you voted in the main election. I knew everything. I don't need people that are voting in the main election because I knew the Democrat always wins in the main election. I needed to win the Democratic primary. And I knew who voted. So I also had ads targeted to those people.
Oh, wow.
How they found them, I don't know. I geofenced, all this stuff I never knew about. I paid for ads. If you walked by the polling station, guess what ad popped up in your phone? My commercial.
Really?
Yes. So.
Wow, it sounds like it took over your life.
It did take over.
For how long? How long was this whole process?
It's a few years of kind of testing the waters, and then I jumped in when the seat became available.
Right.
But like I was saying, when I was in the park, they wouldn't even take I had palm cards. They're called palm cards, which it's a quick,
A summary of
like and a picture. And by the time I got to the end of this, I was worn down. So they would look at the picture. They would, well, I want to talk to the person in the picture, and I would say, well, that's me. Well, you don't look like her because I look worse because I'm exhausted.
That is so funny.
And everybody would tell me, oh, well, I want to meet the girl in the picture. I said, no, it's me. Look. And they said, oh, you look better in the picture. I'm like, I know. So, and they wouldn't take the papers from me. So I had my son, David, who was, like, not that he's not cute now, but he was super cute when he was little. And he would go give them they would tell me, Democrat, I don't want to talk to you. So David would go, here, vote for my mommy. And he would give them, they go, oh my God, he's so cute.
That's great.
And I would send my kids, I don't want to say like I took advantage of my kids and I used them and I said, guys, go give them the papers. And they're just like, no other kid and my daughter, no one else has to do this. Only, I said, you want mommy to become a judge? Go give them papers and smile. Don't look like this. And they went out and they gave them, and my daughter was upset. And my son was just, I'm like going to buy him candy when he's done. And they handed the papers out.
That's great.
And they thought my kids were the cutest thing. And they said, where's your mommy? She's over there. You want to vote for her? I'll vote for you, Mom. And that was that. So, I mean, again, the social skills. They didn't like me. They didn't want to see me. It's not my kids.
Right. How many people voted in your election?
It depends what's going on. I don't remember. I would say maybe 50,000, but I don't know.
That's a lot of people.
We had, from what I remember, I had 500,000 eligible voters.
Sure.
In the primary, I think it was, not in the main election, it was at least 50. I don't remember what it was in the primary.
Got it.
Maybe it was 20, but it was enough that, right. I mean, I had to worry, and then I threw a big party, and everybody, I got a Jewish caterer, a local caterer, and everybody's like, this is the best, induction we ever went to. And there was like roast, and there was this, because you know how we do.
Right.
And everybody says, I still remember the food. So I had my induction maybe like, I'm a judge already for maybe 7 years. So another judge, just Jewish judge, won her election. She says, everybody's talking about the food at your induction. What was it? Can I get you caterer? And I'm just laughing.
That's awesome.
Because we don't know how to do anything.
Oh.
I'm not giving people bagels.
Right.
Because again, Syrian community, we don't do that during brisses. I'm not doing it during a party. But it was very nice.
That's great.
So there was more money I had to spend. But,
wow.
But it was good.
Wow.
That's how we do.
That sounds like a very expensive, very mentally, physically taxing experience.
And then the worst part of it was when I heard I was going to criminal court. I was crying. I said, I don't even know what to do in criminal court. My last experience with criminal law was in my first year in law school, and I never took any criminal classes after that because I knew I didn't want to do that.
Sure. And
you're murdering, and I'm like, what? This is not, I did civil law for 18 years. I never did criminal law. Then I got the phone call that said, and I said, how do I get out of this? That was my first, and my husband's like, are you kidding me? For 2 years, I worked night court, nights, weekends. I told him I have Shabbat. I can't. So, okay, you can come in at 5 o'clock on the day Shabbat ends early, and I'm just like taking a cab back home, and then the office is following me everywhere.
Wow.
And I have to walk you to your door. I have to lock the door. I'm just like, what is going on? I got it. I mean, you get death threats also. So I got a death threat, and it went to another Jewish judge. And she was upset. She goes, they think all us Jews are the same. This was you. This is your case. This is your death threat. And they thought it was her. And we quickly became very good friends. And we're still the best of friends till today, because it's to run an election and to be a judge in criminal court. It's just very, it's a unique experience. Running an election in general is a unique experience. And I was looking on the internet, and there was another person that won an elected spot in Deal in New Jersey, and I just reached out to her and I said, wow, congrats to you, because I know what it is like to run an election and win.
Was it Gita?
Yeah, it was. But
I just interviewed her.
So very nice. So but you get excited. You see another person did it, and you know what it's like to do it. So you always want to reach out and say, wow, that was great, good for you. And when you're lifting up other people in your community,
great.
it's I'm done. I already got where I needed to get. I was asked, do you want to go to the appellate division, where I would be writing all day long? And I said, no. I like to see people. I like to talk to people, but there are more places to go from where I am.
Sure.
But I don't want to go anywhere else. I'm super happy here. And I pinch myself every morning, and I'm just, when I get on the bench and they bang, they bang on the table and they say, all rise. And the first time they did it, I was like, oh my God, they're getting up for me. And I'm like, and now I'm over it. I'm like, nobody rise, everybody just sit, let's start,
Right.
But for the beginning and in criminal court, it was just like, are you setting bail? And you're deciding if someone's going to leave or go to jail, probably until their trial. And it's
What's that like?
it's heavy. It's heavy. And sometimes you don't know what to do. And for the new judge gets the arraignments. So I was in arraignments if I was not in it during the day, I was in it at night. And I was there till 1 o'clock in the morning. So now my husband's like, what is this job? 5 to 1 in the morning. What is this job? Like, this is not what we signed up for also. So that was also hard. But when it's 12:30 at night and they somehow, I don't know how, the big cases, everybody's ready at 12. It has to get ready, the case. So it has to, you don't have time to hear about what it goes through, but they have to write it up. They have to make an investigation like on the spot. So, the case gets, somehow every case is ready at 12:30 at night, and you're exhausted. And it sometimes goes past 1 o'clock, and you have to make a decision. Is this person going in until it's called a 180 date, which is the date that they have the grand jury hearing. But are they going in till that day, or are they not? Did I get it right? It's hard, and you have both sides arguing. You have the defendants arguing, or a lot of times I would say, these people need mental evaluations. So you would 7:30 them. You would send them in to get evaluated. I like to start fires, one guy. What do you mean you like to start fires? He's setting things on fire in the street. And you just like, as you have to take a step back as a Syrian person. What am I doing here? Like,
right.
The guy's setting fires. I killed my mother. You killed your mother, and just your eyes open up, and then the staff's like, you're not supposed to make faces. Am I making faces? Yes, you are, Judge. You're making faces. And I said, and I'm trying to say, you killed your mother, okay? And then I'm just like trying not to cry. And it's just, no, it was self-defense. And you just like, you don't even know what to believe half the time. Or if you're supposed to raise your own flag and say, this is a 7:30, this is somebody that I need to ask why this person is not being tested to see if they're capable of standing trial. So it's not only little things, it's also, are they standing trial? Am I sending them away to get a mental eval? Then I have to sign off on that. I have more questions. And the other side, the defense, no, they don't need a mental evaluation. What do you mean they don't need a mental evaluation? He's talking to himself in court. There's nobody there.
Right.
And
right.
He'll say, he'll turn, what? Oh, okay. Who is he talking to? Imaginary people. But then you ask the attorney, no, he's fine. He doesn't need it. So you need to override them and make decisions on the spot.
Wow.
So common sense. It's not, I don't want to say, if I would have put you in the spot, you would have said, this is common sense. Something's going on. He's seeing people that are not there. Or I've arraigned community members that, you can't really repeat it's an open court, but it was a lot. I didn't expect to see community members there. I didn't expect to see, whether it's a woman that her license was suspended, she had no idea. She goes, I'll pay money. It's not about money. You're driving with a suspended license. You got caught, whatever. Or it's women stealing, like older women stealing from stores.
Right.
It's upsetting. You go home and you don't sleep sometimes.
Wow. I feel like we could keep talking about your political role and your role as a justice forever, but I want to shift towards community and how you give back. You mentioned to me that you were on that you were the coach of the mock trial team in Mag and David for 20 years. So tell me about that. How did you get into that role, and what have you seen that's come from that, so to speak?
Okay, so the reason I became a lawyer was I was on the mock trial team in Mag and David. That was probably one of the few things I was good at. And when you're good at something right away, I don't want to say for the smart kids, if you're good at everything, and you have 99s and everything, that's great for you. But it was very easy for me to narrow it down because I was only good at one thing.
Right.
I was great at the mock trial, and I felt confidence when I performed, and I remember still who was on my mock trial team. Actually, one of the other members also became a lawyer. But when I called my mock trial teacher and I said, I'm thinking about going to law school. She wrote my letter of recommendation to law school. She said, if you want to come hang out, you could hang out. Or what? Before she said that, I heard she opened up a law firm. So my mock trial teacher's daughter, who used to help us with the mock trial, opened up a law firm. So I said, you know what? I sent her, again, the social skills. I sent her a bouquet. I sent her a plant. She calls me up, Gina, you didn't have to do this. What? I said, no, it's my pleasure. If you ever need anything, I said, actually, I'd like to come hang out. You're welcome, come. I went. She did matrimonial law. And I realized very quickly that's not something I want to do.
Which type of law?
Matrimonial.
What
divorces.
Ah.
Divorces. Everybody's getting divorced. So this is where I was in the middle of divorce court.
Right.
So
not what you wanted it to be.
I didn't know what I wanted to be, but you don't know until you try things and see what you don't want to do.
Which is that was one of those things, right?
So whatever, but they were there till 4 o'clock in the morning. It was a lot. And I hung out with her. And after that, I told her, I want to thank you. How can I thank you for all this? When I graduated law school, I said, you were inspiration to me. You guided me. She was my mentor. It was Deborah Kahn, and she and her mother Lola was my mock trial coach, and she would bring her daughter in to help us. We would be in her house for hours. She would feed us, everything. So she said, you don't, I said, I'm going to take you out for dinner, the best dinner. She says, no, you know what I want you to do? She goes, go back to Mag and David. They need a mock trial coach. They don't have anybody. I said, like that. I was hoping it would be a dinner and it would be over, but I said, okay. So I went back. Mr. Fisher was the principal at the time. I said, I'm here to do mock trial. And he says, well, how much do you want? I said, I'm not asking for money. I need to do this because I told her I would. Wait, you want to come do this for free? I said, yeah. Well, they didn't have anybody, so okay. I just remember who my team was that year. It's over 20 years ago. Albert Sardar was he was the captain of the team.
Sure.
We went, if anybody knows, the Flatbush kids know, mock trial. I think we went, we were one before Albany. And I remember it was on Yom HaShoah was out, and people, that was one of the trial that we lost. It was that far out, it was May. And we lost that day because half our team had other commitments because of that day. They had some kind of play or whatever it was. But we went 6-7 rounds, and it was amazing. And the kids, I didn't know any other way because I knew from Mrs. Kahn how it's supposed to be. So she opened her house to us. She drove us. Next thing you know, I'm driving the kids to and from. I have snacks out, but one of the kids said, I'd like schnitzel for dinner. He's telling me, I'm like, what? I want fried chicken. I'm like, hello, I'm not making dinner. But next thing you know, I'm making dinner.
That's so funny.
He's holding my daughter Vivian in his hands when she woke up. I just said, this is really crazy. Now my house is mock trial. My husband's like, what's going on? I said, it's mock trial. Sunday mornings we would practice in the school, and it was so fulfilling. It was beyond. And then Albert says, I'm going to go to law school. I said, I got you. And I made a promise at that point to any kid who was on the Mag and David mock trial team, it's your mock trial forever, I used to say. So you need help, you call me. So I've had kids who've, believe it or not, unrelated, got into car accidents. They call me. I got in a car accident. Why are you calling me? I'm the mock trial coach. Oh, because you're a lawyer. Okay, but I can't really be a lawyer, but I'm helping them. I have, one of my students, I remember, he did and ended up going to law school, but you could tell who they are early on.
Sure.
And I'm going to say his name. I hope he's not going to be upset, but Max Towell. So, we would practice, and we would sit and write everything, and the kids were great, and we wrote a whole, script, and we get to mock trial, and he gets up to ask the questions, and he takes the papers that we wrote, he goes, so, and he throws them on the desk, and he just starts talking. I'm like, oh my God, we're going to lose. He just threw everything on the paper, and he went off the top of his head, and he was fabulous.
Wow, that's
and
great.
I just remember, and I'm like, it's like one of your kids flying, but they're not doing what you told them to do. Have the paper in your hand, look at the questions, know the objections, and then he just threw it, and he's like, let me ask you a few questions, and he threw. And I'm sitting in the back room, like, oh my God, he threw everything on. He threw everything. And then I'm like, we're going to lose. And we won. We kept winning. And it was just like, you feel so good inside. And then when he tells me I'm going to law school, and it's like, I think he went to Columbia, and he said, I'm going to law school. And you feel like, yeah, I had a little part in it. Like, I'm sure his parents had the biggest part in it, and he did himself. But you feel a little better. You're like, wow, the kid went to, and then you kind of talk to him throughout, and it's like, wow. But I saw it in him. When he was 15, when he was 16, I saw it in him. My goal was to get, and I know nothing against the men, because I had a lot of, male students who became lawyers, but I wanted to get one of the women to do it. And I had Natalie Segev, who graduated. She went to John Jay. I spoke with her throughout school. I think that's where she went. And then she ended up going to law school. At one point she got married, and we had a conversation. She says, I don't know if I'm continuing. I said, you have to continue. Like, whatever I can do to help you, I'm going to help you. This is how many years after mock trial?
Sure.
So throughout it, she graduated. She was my intern. She was applying for a job. I wrote her also a letter of recommendation. I had them call. I said, what can I do to help you get a job? What can I do to help recommend you? Because I know you're wonderful and you're going to be great. So she's working for the city, also doing somewhat of a 9-to-5 job. And she says, this is the best job ever. But all these things, when you're mock trial, on my team, I'm your person for life. There was another student who, he was on mock trial, but he went to Princeton, and then he was a genius. He is a genius. He majored in economics. He had a job, and he said, you know what? I'm not challenged. So he calls me up. He says, I don't know if you remember. 10 years later, I don't. In his late 20s, I don't know if you remember me. I said, really, I can't forget you because I remember you.
Sure.
And he said, you wouldn't be interested in maybe having me in your courtroom. This is when I was in criminal court. Maybe I can come hang out. I said, what'd I tell you, mock trial forever. He came, hung out. He ended up going to NYU. He graduated. He's in a major law firm now. And he remembers, and he interned for me while he was in law school, but he just says, I don't think he thought that I was going to say, my doors are open, but they are, and he's super successful now, so the fact that I was able to help these kids through the mock trial team, and maybe I took it a little more seriously than other mock trial teams, but you had me for life.
That's amazing. Sounds so fulfilling. What do you say to young women in the community who feel like they can't be a professional and be the best mom and wife that they can be?
It's up to you. I mean, you could also be a lawyer and put it on hold because you really only want to raise your family, or you might need the income, and it gives you flexibility. And when I was younger, I can't even count how many people told me, you can't do this as a woman. I remember once questioning myself because this other woman I was talking to said, oh, I also want to be a lawyer, but, I want to raise my family. I'm like, oh my God, am I not raising my family? I want to get married. Then you're thinking, can I not get married? Like, what's going to happen? But if you have support and your family's willing to help you. My husband, by the way, was not all gung-ho with everything from the get-go. He wasn't like, hurrah, my wife's going to be a judge. She's going to be missing in the middle of the night. In criminal court, I'm going to have to wonder what's going on. He didn't, but he saw that it wasn't really interfering with anything that we were doing in the house. I was doing homework with the kids. Everybody was eating. And at one point, he went out with my palm cards outside when people were voting. He was giving out the cards. He was even cheerleading. In the beginning, he says, $250,000, what are we doing? This is so crazy.
Right.
And now he's like, I saw your husband outside the voting poll. I said, this is great, And it wasn't the best job ever when I was in night court, but now he says, this is great. He says, you're home a lot. I'm able to help my kids.
It's great.
I'm able to help other kids. Nobody's missing anything. It's. I probably have more time than other people have.
So, to the young woman who might be worried about how they're going to balance everything, your message to them is, it's possible. You'll get it done.
It's not even. It's likely you will get it done, because women in general. I'm not saying anything bad about men, but we have to multitask. This is what we do. Forget job or no job. There are women that have jobs. You have to do the homework with your kids. You have to be on these apps looking for what, how your kid is doing in school. You have to go to the parent teacher. You have to cook Friday night. I'll even go so far as to say this. Maybe it's a little progressive. You don't have to cook. You need to make sure there's food on the table, because I know women that don't cook, but they'll make sure that there is food on the table. They might buy the food ready. I personally don't do that. My roast goes in the oven at Wednesday night and it cooks in 20 hours. That's me. But if there's enough money, you don't have to be the one in the kitchen cooking.
Right.
My mazza, I used to make from scratch. I don't, for the most part. I buy it now. There's nothing wrong with it. You just have to organize. There's Instacart. Your fruits, your vegetables, your meats get delivered.
Right. Yeah.
You call Prime, you call IND. Guess what? They bring everything to your door.
Right.
How hard is it?
Love it.
Yep.
For young adults today who want to put themselves ahead, for law, but in any professional career in general, what do you advise them to do today that could put themselves ahead of their peers?
So in law, I personally joined the political club. I joined the Thomas Jefferson Club. I'm currently a member of other clubs as well, and it's not even. I am a member of like a Jewish law group also. I'm also a member of a Catholic law group. I'm a member of a Colombian lawyers it's Italian lawyers. Join a club. Join a political club.
And
They
get
meet
together with like-minded people, right?
They meet. It's really a lot of older people. It's not really younger people, but I used to bring my kids. And they used to learn a lot by sitting there. But yeah, you meet people, you talk to people. You have many internship opportunities in the community. Also, I can't tell you how many kids I've had interning for me. Call up a community member and see if you can get an internship. They like it more when you're a little bit older.
Sure.
I don't know about high school kids, but get involved. You'd be surprised who's willing to mentor you. Even the teacher, if you see a teacher in school that, seems open to you learning from them, and they're willing to give of their time, take advantage of it.
For sure.
And they like when you reach, don't be afraid to reach out.
Love it.
Worst you're going to get is, no, I can't. Okay, you can move on to the next person.
Nice. Should people follow their passion? What do you think of it?
So, I could tell you now, I was telling you off screen, but my son is a guitar player. He started out a drum player, and he loves guitars. He says, Ma, we went away, and our plane, for winter vacation, our plane stopped over somewhere. I think it was Nashville. And all these bands were playing in the streets, and we walked up and down the streets. And he's like, I could do this. I said, oh my God, this is like a mother's nightmare. I said, no. No. And he is a great guitar player. So I said, you can't, what are the chances of you making a living? This is his passion. But, this is a Jewish mother's nightmare, but it's his passion. So he plays, and I always want to play guitar. So I sit, sometimes he's like, Ma, listen to this. And he plays for me in the basement. I said, this is great. What is he doing? He's really, they put together a little group, and they're going to play at the old age home.
That's nice.
And they're doing karaoke. And
That's
I said,
great.
you know what? This could be, it's not your passion. You're not, with a band rocking out on a stadium. But okay, it's like you're with the 80-year-olds, but you're playing for them, and you're performing in some way. So it's his passion, I don't think, would have led to being successul. It has to also be somewhat practical.
I think what I'm getting from you is you could divorce your passion from your profession. They don't have to be the same thing.
But you need a passion that's practical, and you can divorce it. It's both of them.
Right.
You need something that's practical. If I mean, what was he gonna do? Play in a band and then go on the road, and then, I mean, I came from criminal court, so I'm thinking drugs, murders,
Right.
and this is my kids they all think, I think, that they can get attacked any minute, and this is the message I give to them, which is not a great message, but this is where my mind is going. I said, this is not something, the passion
right.
is not, you can have your passion and do something else, but there should be some kind of passion for what your profession is.
For sure.
But it has to be practical.
Right. Okay. I like that. It's a happy medium between following your passion, between doing something that pays the bills. It's a nice in between. I like that.
And paying the bills is by the way very important, because there are points where, hopefully there isn't, but your spouse is down and your spouse can't carry, or you're down and you can't carry, and it strengthens the bond when one of you could pick up and work from there.
Right.
So it's the money is something to consider also. There's debt when you go to law school. It's about $80,000 a year now.
Wow.
And there's 3 years of law school. So, I mean, you have to consider that also. But it took me 20 years to pay off my student loans.
Right.
But it's you're bringing in money, and a lot of money, and
wow.
benefits, and all kinds of things that you're adding to your family that you should consider also.
Right. We have a signature question on the podcast. It's called the momentum moment. Essentially, my father thought of the name momentum because for young people especially, things that you do when you're young, have a compounding effect, and there could be one moment that changes your life, right? That whether it be a moment where you realize that what you do, you're doing what you love and you can turn that into a business, whether it be a moment where you realize that you can fuse your passion and making money, whatever it might be. For you, what was the moment when your life, when the course of your career changed in that way? What was your momentum moment?
I think that when I was not great at anything in high school, and it's when I had my mock trial, I think I was in 10th or 11th grade, and I got up and I did a cross-examination, and I really killed it, and I heard my coaches in the back, like, ecstatic. I was like, I killed this. I can do this. And I think that's why I went back and volunteered for 20 years, because I wanted my kids are my mock trial kids, but I wanted my kids to have that moment also. And like I mentioned with Max, he had the moment. I don't even think he knew he had a moment, but like I saw it. It was like, this is his moment. And with Natalie and with all these other people, I had my moment there. I said, you know what? It wasn't a full moment, but that was one of the moments.
Beautiful.
And then when I ran for judge, and I actually got up on the bench, and there's a point where everything flows and you're like, oh my God, I know what I'm doing. And after not knowing what you're doing for a month on the bench, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I have this done. I said, I looked at the other judges. I said, I can do this. I could do this better sometimes. So that was another moment. But the mock trial was my moment where like, all right, this is what I want to do.
That's great. That's great. And just to think that one moment when you were a kid and you were in mock trial translated or directly impacted the next 20 years of your life as coach of the Magan mock trial team. I mean, it's crazy to think about.
It is, and I'm no longer the coach of the mock trial team, but I was exhausted after 20 plus years.
Right.
And the kids are with me all the time. The kids, it's funny. I went for a cleaning, and who was the hygienist? My mock trial student. Like,
that's so funny.
It's just, she goes, Gina, and Frida's, it was just nice because you go through something.
Right.
It's I don't want to say it's like going to Israel for a year where you're with these people day and night. These people are in your house.
Build
They're
camaraderie.
just, it is a camaraderie, and it's something that, I'll never forget, and I'm proud of them, even for whatever they do. One of the kids came to me and said, I think I want to be a doctor, but I might want to be a lawyer. I said, great, come to court. I have a resource that no one has. Come to court. So he sat in the courtroom and he saw what was going on. He said, it's so clear to me. I've made my decision. I said, great. You want to be a lawyer? And he says, I absolutely do not want to be a lawyer. So even if it's giving to someone, helping them figure out what they want to do, he says, I want to be a doctor. I definitely don't want to do this. I was so wrong. But the kids get to come to work.
And you helped him decide that.
I did. And even when I say mock trial forever, he was in Israel. He's back now. But he completed his schooling. But when he was in Israel, he says, I need AirPods. You know, it's very expensive here. So guess what? I met him in Israel. I gave him the AirPods. I bought him AirPods from here.
Mock trial forever.
But mock trial, and I said mock trial forever. I said, you need AirPods. That's part, like, we're family. This is what we're doing. And it's just, I don't think I don't know what it's like in other groups or other organizations, but I don't think anybody has what I had with those kids for 20 years. I don't want to get emotional, but we are family. And if you ask any of them still, we are. I actually married my mock trial kids also during COVID.
Really?
Yes, because I'm able to marry people. I have a license to marry people as a judge.
That is so funny. Wow.
So it's not, you know, it's COVID. We need somebody to marry us. I said, okay, mock trial. I'll marry you. We need AirPods. Mock trial. I got you AirPods. But whatever it is, it's I need hours. You need hours to graduate, like pro bono hours. So can I do my pro bono hours by you? Mock trial. I said, mock trial forever. Yes. So they always got that from me, and I can't do it half. It's always 100%.
Beautiful. Gina, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
This was very, very interesting, very eye-opening to get a view into your life as Supreme Court Justice in Kings County, as the coach of the Mag and David mock trial team for 20 years, and it was very interesting, particularly for me, to hear about your campaign. That was super cool. So, thank you for coming.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
That wraps up this week's episode with Justice Gina Abadi. I really hope you enjoyed, and I want to share just 3 of my top takeaways from our conversation. First, you don't have to be good at everything. I mean, Gina's journey shows that you can achieve remarkable success by focusing on your strengths, even if you face challenges in other areas. As Gina said, she didn't have to know calculus, she doesn't have to know history, she doesn't have to know math, English. She has to know one thing, she has to be good at law. And it's all about finding what you excel and leveraging that. Second, don't underestimate the power of social skills and relationships. I mean, from navigating law school to connecting with voters, Gina's ability to build connection with people and foster relationships played a pivotal role in her career. And third, family and community are 2 of the most important things. I mean, Gina's commitment to balancing her demanding career and her family and her dedication to giving back through coaching mock trial students, it highlights the importance of a strong support system and contributing to something that's larger than yourself. And I just think that's paramount to everything. Obviously, you can have all the success in the world, you can have all the money in the world, but if you don't feel fulfilled with a good support system, if you're not giving back in a way that makes your life meaningful to you, then what's the point? I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Be sure to check out my conversation with Gita Kaplan, who's a councilwoman in Ocean Township, a board member of Hillel Yeshiva and the Propel Network, and she does general counsel for a major apparel company. Gita, much like Gina, I know they have similar names, navigates multiple high-impact roles with incredible dedication and energy, as we'll hear in the episode, and she proves that you can excel in both career and community service at the same time. And to listen to that episode, you can search Momentum Gita Kaplan anywhere or click the link in the show notes. Again, that's Momentum with Gita Kaplan. With that said, guys, thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to subscribe to Momentum wherever you listen to podcasts. We're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube. Follow our Instagram account. We post many clips, digestible little snippets that you can consume throughout your day to take the inspiration and take the knowledge with you. Please share the podcast with a friend who you think would enjoy it. We're trying to spread momentum to as many people as possible, and the feedback that I get from people who watch the show, I mean, it's the thing that keeps me doing this podcast. It's amazing, and the feedback that I get from you guys, I love it so much. If you have good feedback, if you have any constructive criticism, I'm open to everything. Please send me a DM, leave a comment, and be sure to like the video. As I said, share with a friend. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.